Hey guys, I'm Meldon. Welcome back to another YouTube video on guitar. So, in this YouTube video, I want to focus on the starting drills. So, of course, as a beginner, the starting drills are very important, and honestly, you're probably going to have to do them a million times before your fingers kind of adapt. Your fingers are going to be in a lot of pain. It's like working out. You're going to be sore, but after a while, you get used to it. So the more you practice, the more you play, all of that, the soreness will go away. You'll probably get some blisters, but it's a part of the game. It's something that you can't really skip. It's something that all guitarists go through. And even though there are some very out of this world guitarists, they still go through the same pain. So just to start out, as a starting drill, a good one that I like to follow is just getting used to all the strings. So as a guitarist, you have to have a good reach of your guitar. And by that I mean your fingers have to be able to reach every string on this fretboard. So from this top string all the way to this bottom string. So a good exercise if you're just starting out or if you have very little experience playing guitar would be hitting the first 4 frets for each string. So I'll give you an example. So do that over and over again until you feel like your fingers are comfortable, until it doesn't really hurt anymore. And although that might take a while, it's a good starting drill. So every time you pick up your guitar, just run that drill for maybe 5 minutes, and you can get fancy with it. You can go backwards, and so on and so forth. But the idea is just to get your fingers used to the fretboard, because as a guitarist, eventually you're going to want to be doing all this fancy stuff, and I get it. That's probably why you picked up the guitar in the first place. You wanted to do some fancy stuff. Understandable. But you have to start somewhere, and while I can't speak for every guitarist, they had to start somewhere in terms of when they started soloing. So the first step to actually getting to there is just going through that drill, just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And yes, it's boring, but it's something that you kind of have to do. It's a necessary sacrifice for the greater good of you achieving your guitar playing skills. So from there, another starting drill that you can do is just learning the scales. So the scales for guitar are very important. There are several different scales, and honestly, if I were to tell you all of them, we'd be here all night. But we can't. So what I'm going to do is I'll just go through one scale. This is going to be the C scale. So let me just go through it. As I said before in a previous video, there is 7 key notes. So the A to G. So that also follows in the same path for your scales. So even with the scales, there's going to only be 7 notes. So for example, this is going to be 1 in the key of C, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So those are the 7, and then after it starts over. So that's the full scale for C, at least starting from the 3rd fret. So when you're doing scales like that, it's very easy to just keep going back and forth. And then eventually, you can play with it. It does seem boring. It's going to be boring, honestly, for a while. But until you get it down, you have to just keep doing it. So obviously, as I said, you can play with it. It doesn't have to be that boring. You can do stuff like... So you can kind of play with the C scale. It doesn't really have to be that robotic, that boring. But what I would say is do it the boring way first, do it the robotic way first, and then when you feel like you've mastered it, or maybe come close to mastering it, or if when you're just about to lose your mind, play with it, um, pull up a track on YouTube, search backing tracks, and then play to that backing track in the key that you want it to be in. So for example, go to YouTube, type in backing tracks in the key of C, and then after that, do the scale. And while you're doing the scale, you can speed it up, you can slow it down. You're jamming with the backing track, and it'll make it a little bit more fun for you. So that's my suggestion in terms of starting drills. Like, do that, it'll make drills a little bit more fun. But just like in school where you have to sit down and study so you do well on the test, you kind of have to do the starting drills to do well on guitar. So eventually you'll get there, but for now, just take it nice and slow and then do the starting drills. As for strumming in general, we'll talk a little bit about that. So as a starting guitarist, you're going to want to have a few strums in the back of your pocket. Of course, one slow, maybe mid-tempo, one super fast. So if you have one of each, you'll be kind of set. I'll show you an example of each really quickly. So in the key of G, if I'm just strumming slowly for like a slow song, whether it's a slow worship gospel song or like a slow love song, whatever it is, you could kind of use this. So, of course, you can slow it down even more or speed it up even more, but like that's really up to you. And as you probably noticed, I'm using an open chord because it's a more slow song. I typically use open chords for the slower, more melodic songs. If we're moving on to mid-tempo songs, that's going to be a little bit faster, and I would suggest bar chords for that because typically they're like mid-tempo songs aren't lovely. That's the best way I can put it. And you would probably be strumming pretty fast, so you can't make it really sound that lovely. But you can make it sound cool though. So if we're gonna do a mid-tempo pace, it would be something like this. So that would be like for mid-tempo songs, depending on what it is, of course, that has more of like a country vibe to it. So, I mean, obviously, if you're not playing country or like you're not doing a gospel thing, then maybe you don't want to do that exact strum, but I think you get the point in terms of the tempo. For fast songs, well, it depends on what you consider fast. So if you are doing a rock and roll concert, heavy metal, that type of stuff, the guitarists are probably losing their minds. No, really, they literally probably have super long hair and they're flipping their hair back and forth and they're playing super quickly. So they're literally losing their mind. So if you want to be a part of that crowd, hey, go for it. But what I would suggest for strumming, you're going to be strumming a little bit faster. For example, like let's say rock and roll, I'm going to turn on my distortion for a second, or sorry, heavy metal, not rock and roll. And you'd be doing something like this. Yeah, so that's an example of a fast drum. Of course, it depends on the song, as I said. So if you're into heavy metal music, that strum would be definitely for you. I would say do it. But in general, if it's not a heavy metal song, maybe it's something along the lines of a little bit more jazzy, although there aren't really many fast jazz songs, to be fair. And most jazz guitarists would probably just solo at that point. But I would say let's stick with the heavy metal context. That's basically how you do it if you're playing really fast. So with that said, I would say practice 3 strums, 1 fast, 1 slow, 1 mid-tempo, and then from there you can move on for your strumming. So that's another starting drill you can start with. Obviously, you have to know the chords for the key that you're playing in. So as I said, hop in a lesson and find out what all the chords are. Go through A all the way through G. I'll do that with you. It will take some time to learn them all, and of course, better yet, master them all. Guitar isn't something that you're going to be able to just figure out overnight. This is not one of those quick fixes that you can just do. I know we live in a microwave generation, but hold on now. There are some things that you can't just microwave. So obviously there are going to be people that are faster than others. We might consider them geniuses or prodigies. But for the average Joe, obviously, which most of us are, me, myself included, you would want to just take your time, learn the chords, learn the right way to do it, and then eventually you'll be able to rock out, be super fast, and then, perform. If that's what you want to do, of course, or if you just, want to impress your girlfriend, like that's cool too. But whichever avenue you decide to go down, I would say just take your time with it and learn the chords and then act accordingly. And that's all for today. I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm Meldon, and thanks for watching.